Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, you all are into it. So come on, everybody. Please like and share. Hey, Robert, how you doing? Like and share. We're on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And we are streaming on am950radio.com. And I want you to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and subscribe and please share the show. Please share the show. And go to X at Santita J, at Santita J. Share the show. And whew, go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's right. And become my friend there. That's where we can become friends. We've been talking about Diddy facing the music today. What does all of this mean? There are so many moving parts. In the last hour, we were talking with attorney Keith Lamar. He was head of the Black prosecutors of the United States. And so he really does understand the system because I was trying to figure out the raid and why I needed to have it explained why Sean Combs was denied bond and all of that $50 million. But we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about because there is more to this story, everybody, than we see. I've said often that indictments are political always. You can look at all of the unindicted felons who are walking amongst us every day. It's everything's political, everything. And some people who really should be behind bars are walking free and they have the most pristine reputations. And some people who are behind bars, more often than not, people who are behind bars and people who are taken through the ringer in a public fashion, it's to teach us a lesson. And we don't go after the people who are the war criminals. We leave them alone. But the peacemakers, somehow or another, we find a way to kill Dr. King, right? We do that. Think about that, everybody. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it. There's a lot to unpack here. I am not trying to make Sean Combs innocent, but I am trying to get us to step through the looking glass and see what's really going on here. And certainly Attorney Linda Bernard, police commissioner, and a brilliant attorney out of Detroit. She's been working with Mayor Coleman Young, Reverend Jesse Jackson, so many people down through the years. She's a real freedom fighter, as she has been a brilliant lawyer, having won 3 cases before the Michigan State Supreme Court. Brilliant, brilliant lawyer. But this gentleman you have seen him really. Public relations doesn't really encapsulate what he does. He's what you call a crisis manager. And everybody needs a crisis manager. We all love the show Scandal. Well, yeah, Kerry Washington's character was a crisis manager. When you are in trouble, if you're in Washington, you go to Lanny Davis and a few people. There are few people in this world when you are in a jam, when you have your back against the wall, these are the people who help you to get through it, help you to get to the other side, because you can't do it by yourself. But it's one thing to be in crisis. It's another thing to have a fall from grace and have someone say, you know what? You are not your worst act and you are not your worst day. I'm going to stand with you. And when you stand with these people, when they are in challenge, you lose friends and you lose money. But his principles are such that he said, no, Bill Cosby has done too much for too many people for too long. I'm going to stand with him because there's something about this that's not right. And I'm going to stand with him, even if I'm the last person standing. And indeed, he was. But the Lord has seen fit to bless him. And though, he's doing great things in business because you get rewarded when you do good things and you do God's will. So everybody, yes, Paula, I'm back in Chicago. And yes, I did have a wonderful time in Washington. Got a lot done while I was there. So everybody, I want you to like and share the show. Like and share the show. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only page where I can get a friend. The other pages are throwing everybody off. That was not me. That's Facebook and what they do. So please, let's get engaged in this conversation about Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, also known as Love, Puff Daddy, so many things. This man has really, he's really probably one of the most influential people in the culture and has been for more than 30 years. It says a whole lot. He's helped to reshape the culture, started a television network, and really took rap, which was really a black music form that appealed to black people, and transformed it into hip hop, which made it pop and made it pop all over the world. And he took, as Reverend Jackson says, he took the mess and gave you a message. But he also took people who were in the gutter, from the guttermost to the uppermost. Now you are going to see Mary J. Blige. She is a fashion icon, and she's going to be on the front row at New York Fashion Week. That's because of Sean Combs. Sean John, he won the CDFA award, one of the top designers. His talents have known no bounds. And yet now he is in jail and he's been denied bond. And we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that. We're not saying that the accusations are pretty awful. But as Attorney Bernard and Attorney Lamar explained to us in the last hour, there were no underage women or men who were named in the indictment. And that to me is of consequence because these are adults. No matter what else we've heard, we have to stick with the indictment itself, right? And so let's look at this because there is, as Attorney Lamar said, this is going to involve all of the record industry. And we're already beginning to see resignations from some people in his inner circle. We've seen some people who have left the country and they ain't coming back. But we've also seen a Hugh Hefner who had a Playboy mansion. And I loved Hugh Hefner because the Hugh Hefner I know was one of the biggest contributors to civil rights organizations. And I always appreciated that and respected that about him. And that's how I met him. He was a family friend. And there's that. Clive Davis, who's known to be a master, someone who's not a musician per se, but he can hear a hit. He can look at a Whitney Houston, although Whitney Houston was discovered and guided, her career was discovered. She was discovered and guided by a black man at the label. But when he saw what this gentleman saw, he pushed Whitney Houston all the way to the top, all the way to the top. He revived the career of Aretha Franklin. I mean, he too has reshaped the culture, and he has been Sean Combs' sponsor, but we're not hearing anything about him. And what did you say, Andrew White? It's like he almost had Alzheimer's when you asked about.
Well, thanks for having me on your show.
I've
And
got
it's
to
a
because
pleasure to be on your show with Attorney Bernard as well. So,
well,
nice
let me
to meet
say
you.
this before you begin. You predicted this the last time you were on this show.
I did.
You
I did.
predicted it. I
Well,
mean, Andrew, what
when
did you
you
see?
well, eh, we were the litmus test. Mr. Cosby was the litmus test on how to bring forth charges with no evidence, proof, or truth. Uh, you had alleged allegations that range from 30 to 60 years ago. And they had no evidence. There was no police reports done. There were no rape tests or rape kits done. No one told a family member or a friend. It's just she said so. And what America said is that women don't lie. We know that's a lie.
Right.
Uh, and what we have to do is go back and study the history of how this came about, how this came forward. You know, when Mr. Cosby was tried, true, and tested, and they saw that they had every black iconic figure on the sidelines and was afraid to speak. This is a man who changed the trajectory of HBCUs, changed the trajectory of a black culture,
You did.
and who redefined black culture and showed us the image of what blackness looked like and feel like, and how beautiful it is, and how it has some structure that most people would never have in their cultures. That's what Mr. Cosby gave us, but that was a detriment to him. And by black people like I remember the Diddy's of the world and the Russell Simmons of the world who would not come out in support of him. And a lot of people, even celebrities said, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. No, the media just did their job. They turned up the frequency. And when you turn up the frequency, you drown out all the other voices. And so when I was on your show, I saw how media turned up the frequency. You saw how Homeland Security, did a raid simultaneously in Miami and LA at the same time, and media was there to meet them at the homes. It was all a planned act, and it all came from, I always call it the Cosby Chronicles. And now when you see Clive Davis, he was called out going to dinner, and they mentioned Diddy's name, and he had Alzheimer's, as if, well, who are you talking about? Who's Diddy? This is your mentee. And what they have figured out how to do is how to isolate you from your friends, your support. What they did to Mr. Cosby, Santita, they isolated him from being able to liquidate assets to fund his legal defense.
What do you mean? Explain that.
And what I mean by that, whereas if he wanted to sell an item, because most of these celebrities are asset rich and cash poor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they just don't have. They might tout themselves as billionaires, but they don't have $1 billion just sitting somewhere that they can touch. So when Mr. Cosby needed to move assets around, people said no. They devalued them. Even when he needed to go to the bank and move some things around, they said, well, no, this is Bill Cosby's associated with him. So we don't want your business anymore. So it's the same thing with what you're seeing with Sean Combs now. Sean Combs, it wasn't the judge offering him bail at $50 million. His attorneys proposed a bail. His attorneys, they proposed his house was in Miami worth a certain amount of millions. He had paid it off at $18 million. They put up his mother's house. They put up his son's home. We've never seen somebody go to a hearing, a bond hearing, and they propose the number of $50 million. That wasn't the court's number or the district attorney's number, the judge's number. It was his attorney's number, because they understood when they saw the indictment, no one has seen an indictment that was so detailed as the indictment with Sean Combs. And the reason why they made it so detailed is because they wanted to let the public know, but not just the public, but also the judge know and the system to know that this guy is dangerous to not us, but society as a whole. He's dangerous to the world. They even put in his proposed bond hearing, his attorneys, that he would not be around women. Go and read it.
Who ever heard of such a thing?
But go and read the proposed terms that his attorneys put together. They already knew.
So he can't be around adult women.
Adult women. Adult women, period. Adult
makes
women,
no
period.
sense.
Stay right there, Linda, so we can see you. Okay.
So if you go back and read the proposed terms, they lay it out in the proposed terms what they were offering, and he was still denied, because when they raided his home, they found AR-15s. They found all this lubrication. They found tapes from the freak off parties. And I always tell people this: the difference between a Bill Cosby and a Diddy and R. Kelly, who I worked with R. Kelly off the books. And I got R. Kelly, his present attorney, that's with him now, Jennifer Bunjean, who's also Mr. Cosby's attorney. But Mr. Cosby didn't have tapes floating around. It's easy to deny an alleged allegation, because when it's, anybody can make an allegation. Anybody can make up an allegation on you. Like they said, you could sue a ham sandwich. At the end of the day, you know, it doesn't mean that that allegation is true. It's hard to refute a videotape. It's
But
very
there's no
difficult.
reason to refute it.
Right.
They're adult women. They're
Right.
getting their freak on. Guys get theirs on, girls get theirs on. I mean, it is what it is. Consenting adults are participating in things that consenting adults can do anywhere in the world.
Well, you're right, and but because of Me Too and this Me Too era, to say that you must believe the women no matter what,
Oh, I
you
hate that.
know, these women, you know, we inherited the Me Too era. Mr. Cosby did. There was no Me Too around until we got to our second trial, and Me Too surfaced in 2018. We inherited all of that. And Mr. Cosby became the poster child of Me Too. But I always used to say in my interviews, what about us two? What you know, there has to be some accountability and with these women. These were not, as Attorney Bernard said, these are not little girls. These are grown women who were seeking opportunities in the entertainment and music industry. Now, here's where Mr. Cosby and Sean Combs have a similarity. Mr. Cosby tried to buy NBC. Sean Combs created a media entity called Revolt that was changing the culture. He went up against Diageo. We would not be having this conversation if he had not sued Diageo for 19 million.
Who is that?
Diageo is the owner of Ciroc.
Mm-hmm.
It's the liquor company.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Diageo is the parent company, and they own the brand Ciroc.
And he was suing them because
He went after Ciroc, saying that they owed him $20 million. And he went up into the billions that they owed him on a contract that he signed almost 15, 20 years ago, that he wanted to amend the contract. When he went publicly after Ciroc, that's when they said, you know what? You have crossed the line. We gave you a pass in the nightclub when the shooting happened with J-Lo. You got that pass. We let you use all these different aliases to become whatever you wanted to become. We let you reinvent yourself. But don't think that these white folks don't keep a diary. And the diary came back to hunt him. You know, Revolt TV is such a beast and animal now with a young crowd, with Gen Zs and Generation X. It's one of those media entities now where you go to become known. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes to Revolt now. And getting to Revolt is like being a part of NBC and CNN. He stepped on the wrong toes. And when you get out here flaunting, I always say that what Mr. Cosby and Mrs. Cosby never did, they never flaunted their wealth. Mm-hmm. They never went out and showed. You never saw them at parties. Diddy, the problem with Mr. Combs, he never grew up. But now, what I see his problems, here's his biggest problem. You're in the Southern District, the same district that took down R. Kelly, the same district that took down Donald Trump, the same district that came after Jeffrey Epstein. But will you survive this? Because you know too much. Right now, you got those freak-offs parties include the Mary J. Blige. They include, I'm pretty sure, allegedly the Jay-Z's of the world. All of these political figures that if we sit here and think that Sean Combs is going down by himself,
no,
you're wrong. There's no sense.
That's why I thought he was untouchable, because it was my understanding that he was also an informant for the government.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, why you don't blow the whistle on your own informant? Who does this?
Well, that's why they call it a confidential informant. But when you cross the lines and you get out of order, and I always told Mr. Cosby, I remember when he crossed the line, and we talked about this in his prison cell, at the prison he was housed in a private room they would give us. And I said, I know where this hit is coming from. And he said, where? I said, look, when President Obama came to you to support his candidacy for president, you told him no. I just settled with this woman. And in 2005, I settled with her, and I don't want to bring that to you. So you thought that you were protecting President Obama. And as Mr. Cosby and Mrs. Cosby stated, Michelle Obama will always call the house and say, we have a machine. You will be protected. Well, then he goes on Larry King Live and endorses another candidate. Well, who owns William Morris? R.E. Emanuel.
Who?
R.E. Emanuel,
Rahm
brother to Rahm Emanuel, who was President Obama's chief of staff, who had all of the receipts when we subpoenaed all of the receipts and the files that they had on Mr. Cosby. They had receipts of all the women that he was seeing and he was paying out the box office that he had relationships with. He was in relationships. He was having extramarital affairs. Wasn't raping or drugging these women. They had all of the receipts. Who unleashed it on him? And when he left William Morris after being there 50 years and went to CAA, they fattened him up. It's like my grandmother always said, you know, I'm not fattening my daughter up, you know, fatten a frog up for a snake.
A snake.
That's right, for a snake.
Well, they fattened the frog up for the snake. Mr. Cosby, he put his art collection on loan to the Smithsonian, gave them millions of dollars. Then the allegations happened. They gave him the Johnny Carson.
Wait. He started their collection.
He started their collection.
They did not have a collection,
right.
And you did not have valuable Black art until Bill and Camille Cosby started buying the artworks of Black. I just think it's important to say all that too.
Yeah, he started the collection, but before that, he received the Johnny Carson Award. NBC created this Johnny Carson Award. Now, we never heard about the award ever again.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first and last person to get it. In February of 2015, he had a new television show coming out. I used to be on the phone with the producers of Sony, and I would listen to them create the different shows on the phone and different scenes. That was coming out, and Diane Carroll was going to play his wife. That was coming out February 2015. So they fattened the frog up for the snake. Same way they did with Diddy. They gave Diddy the VMA Award of the year. He comes out with this new album called Love. He's all about love. Then he gets all these accolades. He gives $1 million to Howard University. He's going all around parading everywhere. Everybody's opening up the floodgates to Diddy. His last big award they gave him was the Key to the City. And that was to say, you know what? You got the key to the city now, but now the locks have been changed on you.
No, but they just asked for the keys to the city back in D.C. That mayor.
No, I'm talking about New York. I'm talking about New York.
Oh, I'm talking about the lady in D.C. just asked for the keys.
I think they did that in New York too.
Yeah,
they did in New York too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The mayor gave him the key to the city in New York. They shut down all of New York and put a stage up. Him overlooking the city, basically saying he's the king of New York. Okay, ain't no Black man gonna ever be the king of New York.
No.
And we know the history behind all of that. So they give this guy the keys to the city, and now they changed the locks on him. And they said, no, we're gonna use this key to incarcerate you. And the reason why they took him into custody, because they already know they've done their job with tainting the jury pool. He's not going to get a fair jury. No man that has gone into that Southern District has come out victorious. No matter what you say about him, Donald Trump didn't, R. Kelly did not, Harvey Weinstein did not.
They're almost like a federal office, for real. That's the federal, that district, that particular district in New York.
They
Like
can go anywhere. They don't have any. There's no red line in the sand
none.
for that district. That district can prosecute you if you're in LA, as long as you have ties or some type of business entities in that city, they get to go after anything.
They oversee Wall Street, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And that's why, because the governor of New York, Spitzer Kate, that was his office. And he was
What Mr. Combs failed to do is it's not difficult. It's what I had Mr. Cosby do. I said, look, your entire career, you use comedy, the Cosby Show, in a different world, your music, to humanize all races, all genders, all religions. What Mr. Combs never did while he was out free, he never found unique ways to humanize himself. He showed himself out on trips, hanging out, doing whitewater rafting, hanging out in Miami, but he never humanized himself. He never knew or had the people around him that knew how to be adults. 50-something years old, and you're still in the club. Okay, that's your business. But when you're under such a watchful eye, and as the attorney know, when you go before a grand jury, that number could be what, 12 to 28 people, I think, for a grand jury. And not only that, the defense don't get to go before the grand jury and speak. They get to hear all this salacious and hiding and information that's not vetted, and then they get to come back and file and charge an indictment against you. So, the deck was already stacked against him, and he did himself no good. And the reason why they put him in custody is the same thing that they did with Robert Kelly. And I told Robert, I never forget, I was on the phone with him, and he was smoking cigars. Robert Kelly. R. Kelly.
Oh,
R. Kelly. And I was on the phone.
Don't call him Robert.
And I was on the phone. I was on the phone with him, and I said, Robert, I said, you got to move the girls out of the Trump Towers. And this is exactly what I said to him. I said, if Hugh Hefner had to move the original Playboy Mansion out of Chicago, what makes you think a black man could live in the Trump Towers with two women and smoking cigars and walking your dog? 2 weeks later, the feds picked him up. And the reason why they never let him out on bond is because they said, well, we're trying to get him acclimated to his surroundings. And that's what they're going to do with Diddy. They're basically saying, he's been here. He don't become acclimated. Let's just let him stay here until we have our trial.
Oh my gosh. They've said that he's been cooperating. Does that make him a snitch? Does that make him less safe?
Well, look at how many people are stepping down from labels. You got Kevin Lyle stepping down. You have Jay-Z and all these other people who have distanced themselves from him. And I think sometimes it's the wrong thing to do. What I wanted to show the world is that, it's the old cliche, when your friends are in trouble, you run to the fight. You don't run away from the fight. However, I think to keep a person like him, who's facing 15 years to life, if found guilty, to keep him from not implementing you run to that trouble. What can we do? We're going to stand beside, because you were at those parties. You don't want to become too distant to where he used that and he get caught up in his feelings, because he's going through a lot of emotions right now. I never forget when Mr. Cosby went in, I did the time with him. I was his only visitor. I flew in every weekend. spent hours in that prison with him and hearing his thought pattern. You can't. He was like, these beds feel like iron. You can't get comfortable. You're restless. You're suffering from insomnia. You want to be around people, but they keep you isolated. Well, that's mentally draining. I always told Mr. Cosby, I said, God knew what he was doing with you because he made sure you was blind so you didn't have to see any of the things that you were going to witness in a level 5 maximum security prison. And he was in state prison. Okay. So, I can only imagine what Sean Combs is going through right now, not being able to sleep, not being able to have the meal of your choice, having cold cornflakes for breakfast. It's a lot. It's very traumatic, and it was traumatic on Mr. Cosby. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are. Going to prison is not an easy feat for anyone.
And it's designed. Are you saying that by keeping him in jail until the trial, this is designed to break him down? Do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely designed to break him down because
Okay.
when he's look, the past few nights he's already had enough. As time goes on, because there's no such thing. It should be, the Constitution says that we have the right to a speedy trial. But when will his trial come about? We have a presidential election happening sometime next year. He's going to become acclimated and he's going to get adjusted, but not fully adjusted. He can never get 100% adjusted to it. And he's going to become edgy and he's going to say, I want to talk. He's going to call his attorneys in. I would tell them everything that they want to know. I just want out of here. And they'll try to offer some type of deal. Also remember, there's another name that you must remember associated with Sean Combs, Corey Jacobs. Corey Jacobs had 16 life sentences in federal prison. He was the kingpin that funded Bad Boy. He took the raps for Bad Boy in Virginia, and he went to prison. Obama and Eric Holder, President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder gave him a pardon. Diddy moved him back in. Corey Jacobs kept almost $100,000 on his books in federal prison. Diddy was keeping him going. When he got out and got the pardon, the presidential pardon, he moved in Diddy's LA home with him. Diddy bought him 2 Rolls Royces, a Rolex watches, everything. He took care of Corey. You don't think the federal government was really pissed off? This guy had 16 life sentences. And he was given a presidential pardon. So now, how is he going to be implicated? Now, there's a such thing as double jeopardy. But these are new charges. These are not just drug charges. These are racketeering charges. This is sex trafficking. These are, look at all of the counts against him. I think a total of 6 counts.
Do you think, are you concerned for his safety? Do you think he's concerned for his safety?
Look, that's the place where Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. That's the same prison, federal prison, where Jeffrey Epstein's life was taken away. This guy has more things on people than we can ever imagine, that they cannot afford to come out. Look, Sean Combs has been meeting with presidents, former presidents. He's been meeting overseas with diplomats. This guy is just not the ordinary guy, Santita.
That's what I'm trying to find.
He has a lot to offer. He has a lot to offer that can expose not just the music industry, but they have allegedly talked about uh, a number of people who might been a part of him sex trafficking women in. I think they brought up what's the lady name who had the daytime talk show, uh, the part of LGBTQ,
Oh,
uh,
Ellen.
Ellen DeGeneres. Her name has been coming up a lot
So you're saying,
with these freak offs.
oh my goodness. So you're saying a lot of people are very anxious right now. Like when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, there were a lot of anxious people when he was
The,
arrested.
the Clintons were anxious. President Obama, Donald Trump, um, you name it. The Prince Edward. All of these people. And what Prince Edward was exiled.
Oh, Prince Andrew. Andrew.
Prince Andrews. He was exiled or something. Uh,
Well, that
Look,
interview, I was in Europe and I watched the interview, and it was interesting hearing the European reaction because I was in Belgium, and I was at a conference. Everything stopped because everybody wanted to see this interview because it was on live
right, right.
all over the European subcontinent, and you were like, who told him to do this? This is horrible. He did, but you saw his privilege on display because he was incredulous at how dare you question me. And I guess right now, and I've seen. I remember when he was first when they first raided his home. I think he was dancing to a video. "I'm Still Standing" by Elton John. You've seen that.
Right. Hmm.
And now that is behind us because I think a game changer, and help me with this, was watching the video of him beating Cassie Ventura.
Look, you can't, and you got to understand why that settlement happened. All of these high profile people, mega stars, they have liability insurance through their homeowners insurance. And that wasn't Diddy settling, that was his insurance company settling.
Really?
The insurance company said, look, we're insuring your employees that revolt. We're insuring all of your staff and people who work for you, all your businesses. We got to get this behind. And they settled out for the $23 million. And then they dropped him and forced him to sell all his shares with Revolt. Because if he did not sell his shares, then his employees were not going to be insured. And they dropped him. So right now, he doesn't have any coverage. For example, when Mr. Cosby trials happened, he had AIG insurance. AIG supplemented all of us. It was to their benefit to supplement the criminal trials. They paid for all the legal fees. They paid for research. They paid all of our fees. No matter what we sent in, they paid it because it was a benefit to them. Now, when Mr. Cosby was incarcerated, AIG settled without our permission. They didn't let us know. They settled with Janice Dickinson and other alleged accusers. And just like any insurance policy, they can drop you a settle and they don't have to get your permission or anything in writing from you. So
So, but
right
wait,
now, Sean Combs has no coverage. He's having to fund everything and look at it. Look at it from this aspect.
he
He
has no
touted
coverage?
himself as he has no insurance coverage. No, he has no liability coverage. When you really look at it, if he had liability coverage, look at the proposal that his attorneys did for the $50 million bond. They would put up his mother's house, his son's home, his mansion in Miami, and a mansion next door to him, which his son owns. So if you had that type of coverage and you had liability insurance, you wouldn't be offering to put up any of your collateral.
Oh my goodness. This. Where do you see this going?
Look, I see this going the distance, but I really think you got a guy who I can't see a guy like him, you know, not taking a deal. I don't think he wants to go to trial with this. That video with Cassie is very disturbing to see what he did to her. We don't know what they have in their arsenal. He had checked into, I think, the Hyatt in New York, and he was going to turn himself in. For some reason or another, they said, you know what, let's swoop him up now. They saw him as being a flight risk. He has too many resources. They confiscated his mule at the Miami airport when they raided his homes. So, and we don't know. Yeah, you have consenting adults, but we don't know what's on those tapes. That's the problem. That's the multi-million dollar, question. What's on those tapes? What do they have where they knew that they could identify an indictment the way they identified everything that they were going after him and what he had in his control? That was damning to me.
Well, let me get some of these comments in, because I want you to kind of hear where people are. Robert said Diddy has a spiritual problem. That's between him and God. Just because he's a sex freak, like a whole lot of people, doesn't warrant them taking $1 billion and 15 years to life from him. And Robert continued, that's real extra. Spicy Pete said, who owns the music industry? The media and the slave ships back in the day, and the CEOs of the top 100 world corporations, the NGOs pushing the worldwide mass migration. And Spicy Pete said, don't be a puppet. And and Carol wants to know what the defense might be. What would the defense be? You were hearing the prosecution's accusations. Do you or Linda want to take a look at that?
I'll let Linda, Attorney Bernard.
Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. I had to.
She's muted.
You stepped off. Yep, that was me. Now you're here. Okay, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
The defense would be what we talked about in the first hour, and that is that everybody was an adult and everybody was doing what they wanted to do. Consenting adults have the right to do all kinds of things. That the rest, it may not be puritanical, it may not be, religious or anything like that, but everybody was an adult. Everybody was in their right mind. Everybody made their own choices about what they wanted to do. If they wanted to get their freak on, you got your freak on. Everybody's grown. If you want to get drunk, if you want to get high, whatever you want to do, that's an individual choice. And the fact that it happened at his residences, as you've pointed out, or his events, it doesn't obfuscate the fact but I don't know what you just talked about, the jury in New York, which is an awful, but based on what you just said, they don't have good sense. They don't have common sense. They're not. And I was hoping that if this goes to a jury, that it went before Black people, because Black people generally have more sense. Santita and I talked about this. Even when North was charged, he shredded all the documents in the basement of the White House. Reagan was president, right? And they decided to try him in Washington, D.C. Well, it was an all-Black jury, and they immediately found him not guilty. They said, we knew he was obeying what the president or somebody else had said. They refused to hold him accountable for shredding the documents. That's called, my mama would call it good sense. Black folks have good sense. We're extremely fair. That's what we were. He was all white man, all Black jury, didn't matter to us. We thought it would be unfair to hold him accountable for something that it wasn't his idea, obviously, to do.
Right.
So if I don't know what the possibility of getting an all Black jury is in New York, or mostly Black jury. I think that Trump would have been let go, quite frankly, if that had been the case. Though letting those two lawyers on the panel was a major mistake. Right. Two white male, no way, Jose. But I think that is a defense. I mean, I don't know what you could say about drugs and things like that. I mean, they weren't my drugs. If you walk in my house tonight, Andrew, and you have drugs on you, that's you. I don't have drugs. Diddy wasn't a drug guy, as I recall. He wasn't, and obviously not. Bill Cosby wasn't either. Neither of them had a connection to cocaine, or they weren't druggies. They're too smart for that. I tell people, and I'm sure you do the same thing, and Santita doesn't really do it, but I always tell people that my drug of choice is champagne. That's my drug. You can have everything else is yours. It's not mine. Where's the champagne? That's me. But I mean, but seriously,
mine is scotch and a cigar.
Oh, you're like my father. My father.
Scotch. I love scotch, single malt and
scotch.
Cigar.
Daddy loves scotch.
I love
food
from Macallan to Macallan to you name it. I'm a scotch connoisseur. But we all
that's your drug of choice.
Right. And as you just said, Attorney Bernard, we all have a fetish. We all have fetishes. Everybody has a fetish.
Right.
You know, now because you're not on that mega stage as a Sean Combs or Mr. Cosby or R. Kelly and then Harvey Weinstein and all the countless people, there has to be some accountability. But what we have seen with these type of cases, especially sexual assault cases that involve drugs and women, even what the courts and what juries had a hard time doing, even in both of our trials, even in the last trial I was with Mr. Cosby in 2022, a civil trial in California.
Is that over?
No, he has now 30 more cases, 30 new cases out here.
I knew one was from 50 some years ago from the Playboy Mansion.
He has 12 lawsuits, civil suits in New York, another 12 in Nevada, 5 in Los Angeles, and 1 in New Jersey.
This is all insurance, I hope.
No. He has no more insurance, no more coverage. But because AIG, when he was in prison, they settled and they walked away. And the Cosbys didn't want to exhaust any funds in going after their additional $400 million that the policy owed them. But they would have been fighting forever trying to fight a multi-billion-dollar company.
More money.
Right. So, but at the end of the day, the problem that we ran into, and the juries always came back with the same question: how to define consent? How do you define when a person can consent when they're under the influence? How to say that person had the ability to consent, no matter what they was under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or whatever. So that was the wrinkle that we ran into, and I think that's the wrinkle that
that only exists in America. Right. Every place else in the world, you get drunk, you got drunk, you did what you wanted to do. Only in America do we make these false gods, if you will. You know, she didn't really want to do it. I mean, she didn't really want to do it. I mean, she did it 500 times, but she really didn't want to do it. I mean, we create what under the law, Santita, is called legal sophistry. The sophistry, the story simply creates the narrative that we want that has no bearing in fact, none whatsoever, nowhere in the world. No, I mean, it's unbelievable to me. So I understand exactly what you're saying. You create a narrative that you create this. It's called legal sophistry, and that's what it had to be, because that's what we decided it was gonna be, not what it really was.
Well, you know what,
but see, they've taken away his legal narrative.
What do you mean,
Mr. Combs? Well, how can you have a legal narrative when you don't have direct access to your legal team? You know, his legal team has to. First off, there's a time limit. They can't be at the prison day and night meeting with him.
Can't participate in his defense. Ineffective assistance of
counsel,
that the prosecutor has created, which is unbelievable.
Right. Really, so he can't. He doesn't have access.
Oh, they denied him today.
They denied him. Yeah,
today?
They denied today.
I knew they denied him yesterday, but I didn't know about today.
They denied him again today, but he doesn't have access to counsel. He can't get on the phone with his attorneys. He doesn't have the ability to help aid himself as his own case, to help do research, to help pull documents. His family don't know what things are.
And he can't talk on the phone because they're recording the phone.
We're recording it. Yeah, they're recording his conversation. So right now, he's a mushroom. You know, a mushroom grows in the dark. he's in the dark when it comes to his own defense.
But Carol asks, because I only have a few more minutes here. Oh boy, I told you when Andrew got here, we'd be like, yeah. She said, "Are you saying that what is in the indictment is not true?"
I'm saying that everything is. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that. What I'm saying is that everything is just an alleged allegation. It doesn't mean just because someone files an indictment and you're taken into custody, that doesn't mean that you're guilty. The Constitution affords everybody the right to be innocent and proven guilty.
Andrew, who's the judge?
I don't know who the judge is. I don't know.
Do you know anything about him or her? It's a him, not a her.
I think it's a him. And
But
I don't.
It's
yeah,
just
I don't.
New York State judge.
New York State judge,
like
and just like with Trump, just like with R. Kelly, just like with Harvey Weinstein. The problem, that Southern District is very, very dangerous, and the jury selection that the pool that they pull from is jurors who hate wealthy men, whether you're white or black. Mm-hmm. They hate, and you got to understand why. These jurors are jurors who are living in a city where they're having a hard time probably paying their bills.
How did New York get jurisdiction? He's a resident of California.
Only he has a home in New York. His business entities are in New York City. Bad Boy, all the entities on the Bad Boy are located in New York City. Same with Trump. Same with Weinstein. R. Kelly, they got R. Kelly in there is because they said, he crossed state lines with little girls. So child trafficking.
Although they got on commercial aircraft with ID that said they were a different age. Right.
Right. Correct.
Right. No, he should have gone to Georgia, like our man who Medea.
Tyler Perry. Yeah. Tyler Perry.
You need to go somewhere where there people have
been. Well, I tell everybody, look,
just one more point on that. Mm-hmm. And I heard that 50 Cent is moving his production company out of New York to Louisiana.
He's already moved it. To Shreveport.
Because each coast in New York are crazy.
Well, because in New York they can seize your company. In New York, you're dealing with the New York Mafia, and I call them the New York Mafia. When you get too big, especially when you look like us, you're not safe in New York. Look, Mr. Cosby owns a house on East 61st Street, next door to Ashford and Simpson. He hadn't lived in that house in 30 years. Cosby's. Okay, but they still have their house. Right. Now they got the mansion that he bought the French school for Mrs. Cosby's birthday in 1984 on East 71st Street called Millionaires Row. Mm-hmm. All right, he got the second largest house. You know who has the first largest house across the street from him? Mm. Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right. That's that block.
You know the area, Santita. I don't know.
No, it's one of the wealthiest areas. It's the wealthiest zip code in the city. And I
had a German developer reach out to me 5 years ago and offered me $400 million for that particular home.
Because
it's 8 floors. She designed it. Then he has the home in Western Massachusetts where he lives on 500 acres, Black Angus cows he bought for her in 1970. The house in Pacific Palisades that he purchased in 82. Then the house in Philadelphia. They own all this land in Virginia and Maryland where he had for his dogs, where he won Westminster Dog Show twice. But I have one of the breeds, a Lakeland Terrier. He won with Cosmo is his name. The point when I'm making, when you have that type of wealth and you come into the backyards of a city of New York and you a Black man in America, look, at the end of the day, we all have dirty laundry. And none of us can stand a good investigation. None of us.
You know what Bell said? One of the things that he found out when they went after him for stacks, he found out, and this was 50 years ago, He said at any time, any American can be declared bankrupt if you have three outstanding debts, which we all do at any day in the month: your phone
Right.
bill, your electric bill, your gas bill. The courts can declare, at least at that time, they can declare you bankrupt.
Before
And
the changes
these,
in the bankruptcy code.
well,
It
no,
changed.
but I'm just saying, Renee said they led Sean Combs to believe he was untouchable. He had no one around him to set him straight. I got about 1 minute, and if you don't mind,
And that's
Linda, I
usually
want
the problem.
Andrew.
That's usually the problem with so many. Look, at the end of the day, I don't like to use the N word, so I just use this word. At the end of the day, we're all no grows to them. Okay.
I like that. I say
we're,
Negroes all the time, but yeah,
no,
no
we're,
grows.
we're
Like
no
that.
grows to them. Okay. And as long as we stay in line and we let the rubber meet the road according to their standards, we can migrate and we can possibly leave this world without a scandal. But
Maybe.
there's no black man in America that's going to ever leave this earth without a scandal. I
Not
don't care who you are.
not unscathed. And in fact, that's why you all have to question when the system goes after white people,
Mhm.
because there's something, their counterculture. We have to watch that because we're living in that kind of time. They said Martha Stewart, Paula said, I hear you, Paula. I can't believe Martha Stewart did time. She played the woman. She paid the woman tax. Trust. People, people love you and loathe you because you're successful.
But see,
Oh,
Martha Stewart she had an advantage as a European white.
as a white woman.
Okay, and what happens when they get in trouble? They come to us, and Snoop Dogg pulled her out of the hole.
Boom. Oh yeah, and Paula said Trump is the only one who should be put in jail. Be careful with that, Paula, because there are a lot of moving parts with all of that.
Well,
I
you have
mean,
to be careful what you want for Trump because that filters down to us who don't have the resources and financial resources.
well, and you have to ask the question. Because I know Dr. King lived under federal investigation for the entirety of his 13-year ministry.
Mhm.
As soon as he became active in the Montgomery bus boycott, everybody,
Mhm.
the IRS kept him under audit for the rest of his life.
Right.
That's what they do.
Mhm.
Okay. I saw them run Dennis Kucinich out of Congress because he stood for people.
Mhm.
Start asking some questions, everybody. Start asking some questions. I'm glad you love my necklace, Monique. Thank you so much. I know you love this too. All right, girl. Come on, girl. You know what's up.
Andrew.
That, the,
Yeah.
but but I just, you know what? I am so
Wakanda forever, huh?
yeah, and that's a comic book.
Yeah.
Y'all, come on now. Everybody's running around talking about Wakanda. I said, you do know that is a character
Right.
that was drawn by Marvel.
Mhm.
But okay, but I'll roll with it. That having been said, everybody, let's pay attention to this. No one is what Lorraine said. If you're sex trafficked, it cannot be consensual sex, can it? Very quickly. I've got less than a minute.
No, if it's self
No.
sex trafficking, it is
Yeah.
consensual sex.
Six.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is not. I don't
No,
think
it's
it is
not.
consensual sex. Right. It is
No,
not.
it's not. It's not considered. If you're trafficked against your will, it's not consensual. You
Correct.
don't have a decision in that person who's taking you. They're doing it against your will.
Okay. And Thalia said, show the public everything confiscated. Mic drop on that. Because that's really what needs to happen. Will that happen?
Nah, you won't ever see that.
We won't see that. And that's my point. This is all selective. The prosecution is a persecution. I am not saying that Cassie should have been beaten in that hallway. I think that was a horrible
That was
thing.
awful.
And
Who paid for
I
that?
think and
That's
I
left
think it's
unanswered.
and I think it's
Right.
an awful thing when people are given this Faustian bargain that I got to sell my soul to get a record contract. I got to have sex with you, or you have to lord over me. That having been said, there's a lot more to this because
Mhm.
there are a whole lot of people running for cover,
Right.
and we'll see who gets covered, and we'll see who is left to flap in the wind.
Correct.
So what Ashley King said, Stax Records, Memphis, they backed freedom and were shut down.
What?
You know what? When Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, our early staff and money.
What? Stax
Records, no, hold on. I'm gonna let you all go, but we're gonna talk as we no, hold on, Linda, because I gotta let folks go. You know, I'm on a time crunch here. I love everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I am Santita Jackson. I'll see you tomorrow.